Hello, everyone. Yaglidu. My name is Adam Dunstan, and as it says here, Adam Dunstan, Ishik Thailand, Dor Shichida A, Belen, Carlisle Shichada A, Yelin, Jackie Shuta Nan, Shar Shu Anan, Wallaman Shugo, Shkaya Kilanda, Ori Zadano Shogo Yashtura, which is me introducing myself and some of my family line and some of my locations in Dena'ina, which is the native language of where I live in Kenai Soldotna. And all of us that live in Alaska, which is most of the people in this course, live on Alaska Native land. And one of the most important things we can learn about, in my admittedly biased opinion, is about the indigenous cultures of this place that have thrived on these lands and survived on these lands. And so I hope you find this to be a really enriching part of your education. Most people enjoy learning more about the places they live, and I hope that it is a great course for you. In the Blackboard, I want to show you a few things about Blackboard and a few things about the syllabus. So first about Blackboard. The first thing you click on is Start Here. It will have some information about the structure of the course, how to navigate Blackboard, a link for the syllabus, and then a link for research paper information. You'll be doing a roughly 4-page research paper, single-spaced, 3 to 4. And so this gives you some additional information on what that is, and also how we will be grading you on it. And then some pointers on sort of how to pick a culture you want to focus on and what aspects you want to focus on, because you cannot cover everything in a 4-page paper. The research paper, I'll talk about this more elsewhere, but basically it's a 2-part paper that's 3 to 4 pages, single-spaced long. It's a research paper. You're going to be drawing on at least 7 sources, and those sources should be either primary sources from the group. So if I'm writing about, for example, Dena'ina culture, a book written by a Dena'ina author, or a website from one of the Dena'ina tribes in the area, such as Kanaitsi, or other groups as well, like Taionic. So that would be like a primary source. Another kind of source you could do is academic research. So things, I want to be clear what I mean by that, because in the days of, online writing, anybody can claim they did research. So to be clear, what I mean by that is people that did long-term scholarly research in a community that was reviewed by somebody other than themselves and was done using scholarly research methods. And so something like an archaeologist that did dig site art excavation in an area, anthropologist, cultural anthropologist that spent a year living in an area talking to elders, something like that. Not random person on YouTube with a theory. But anyways, academic research. It doesn't have to be an anthropologist either. It can be a historian or a political scientist, or whatever. But somebody who spent significant research there. So it could be things written by somebody in that community. It could be academic research. Sometimes it's both. In Alaska, we have a really rich and awesome history of indigenous anthropologists, people writing about their own communities. The third thing is sometimes there's really good government-produced research, like Fish and Game does these yearly subsistence reports that are useful. And then number 4 is news articles, as long as they're from a credible source, for part 2. Credible source. It's always a little bit of a dicey topic, but I think you will be able to tell what we mean by that. Basically, like well-established news sources that clearly have spoken to people in a community, right? All right, so it's a research paper though, and it's got 2 parts. The first part is traditional culture. We're going to pick one of the Alaska Native cultures, and you're going to write a couple of pages about some aspects of traditional culture. You cannot cover everything, so pick 3 or 4, right? So for example, maybe I'd pick, all right, I'm going to focus on the Dena'ina, I'm going to look at hunting and language and spiritual ceremonies and how people were related, like how people considered other people to be related. So that's 4 things. That's a lot. Maybe I just focus on 3 of those. Don't try to cover everything. You just can't in 4 pages. but give me a sense, sort of a taste of that traditional culture. And then in part 2 of the paper, you're going to talk about a contemporary issue that is affecting this group of people. And I note there that can be positive or negative or mixed. It doesn't, people tend to go the direction of like, oh, a negative thing, like language loss over time, or like some serious economic or environmental issue that's affecting folks' well-being. But this could also be a lot of other things, like you could write about things like the UPIC immersion program, schools up in Anchorage or something like that, like a kind of a positive contemporary thing. But the point is, it needs to be contemporary. It needs to be something modern day, talking about, because that's kind of a major part of this course, is thinking about Alaska Native cultures as not just, oh, I'm learning about the past or the history, but also like Alaska Native people, very, very much alive today, very, very much present. Native cultures very much alive and present today. We are not talking in the past tense. This is not just history, right? This is also very much talking about the present day. So the course asks you to, yes, look at sort of historical practices, but then also look at what's going on with that community today, okay? That's a little bit about the research paper. By the way, that paper mostly, it's 200 points. Most of your points are based on the content, not on the writing. This is not a writing course, although 25% of it a quarter is on the writing. But when I say that, a lot of that is basically being organized, right? Like I can follow your train of thought, and also being professional, by which I mean like you're not being offensive or something, or making crazy claims without evidence. It's not, again, a writing class. You can take a writing class from my wife, or my buddy John Messick in the writing department, or my wife Charlene. We've got lots of great writing professors at KPC. That's not what this is. I'm not expecting this to be like, Ernest Hemingway or something. I'm expecting it to be professional and sound like a research paper that you should be producing at college level, okay? If a research paper, though, is daunting to you, I know for some people it is. Some people are like, I'm coming back to college after 20 years. It's been a while since I've written a research paper. Or, I'm 17 and this is my first college level research paper. If you have something like that, please let me know. I would love to talk you through it and really help you get the help you need. We have a great writing center here. And also, I think I can myself give you some advice on how to make the process easier and have a good product. Most people really like the research paper. It ends up being one of their favorite parts of the course, which I don't know if that's a commentary on me not being a great lecturer, but I don't think so. I think it's a commentary on it's really fun to do a deep dive into a culture and really rewarding. So that's the Start Here page. There's the announcements page. I will regularly put up announcements every, few days, or at least every week. That'll kind of guide you through things with the course changes, things like that. If there's ever a change in the readings, it'll be on announcements. So do touch base with the announcements regularly. There's a page with syllabus, obviously your most important document in the course. And then modules. Modules is by far and away the most important page on this Blackboard, because it's where all the content is. It's where all of the lectures are, where all of the readings are, and it also has links to the assignments and tests. Although if you can't find them here, you can always just click on assignments for the assignments, or tests for the tests. And the final link is My Grades, where you can look up what your grades are. But on the modules page, you go to the week that we're on. So today it's 6/29, so I go to the week 1 because it's 6/27 through 7/6. So we're on week 1. And then when we're in there, we have a bunch of modules. So those modules are each a different topic that we're covering that week. So you click on it, and there will be lecture videos for that specific topic for that specific week. And then you will also have the readings. There is no textbook in this course. All of the readings are online. That allows us to reduce the cost to you, and it makes sure that people have readings on the first day of the week, the first day of the class. So there will be several readings for that topic, or often, as in this case, there will be a reading and a video about this topic. So by which I mean a video by somebody other than myself. So you can do the readings before or after the lecture videos. I would probably start with the lecture videos and then do the readings, but you could go either direction and it will work. So you'll have several modules for that week, several topics that you'll be covering, then a study guide that will tell you some things to study to get ready for the test, and then a link for a test if there's a test that week. There isn't always, but if there is. and a link to any assignment that's due that week. So modules is very, very important. Assignments is next, and tests, but again, you can also get to those by clicking on them through the modules typically. Okay, so that's a little bit about the Blackboard. Now I want to shift gears and talk about the syllabus. So I'm not going to read through every sentence of the syllabus with you. I think that would be terrible for everybody, but I will highlight a few things. One, I make a little joke here. I make a few jokes during the course. Doesn't mean I don't take things seriously, quite the opposite. I've been teaching a long time, and in my experience, if there's a little bit of humor, it tends to help people learn better, and help people feel engaged and not bored. And as it so happens, in most Native communities that I've worked in, that is also the case, where working a little bit of humor into things helps people learn better, and it can be a healthy thing. So anyways, I'm not really the Duke of Anthropology and the Earl of fictional titles, obviously. It's a fictional title. Maybe not a very good joke, but a joke nonetheless. All right. And then it's got some info about my office hours. We can meet Wednesdays on 3 to 4, but I know that doesn't work for everybody. So if you'd like to meet another time, just let me know, email me, and we can set up another time. Over the summer, my hours are fairly flexible, and so we can find other times that will work. Since it is the summer, I tend to be working remotely, and I know a lot of you tend to not want to be coming to campus. But if you do want to physically come to Kenai Peninsula College and meet with me, I do have offices there, and we can meet. Just shoot me an email and let me know. But otherwise, if you're not coming in to meet with me, the office hours are virtual, and we do them by clicking on this Zoom link. This is a description about the course. Among other things, I wanted to highlight where it says cultural heritage, ethnohistory, and contemporary experiences from an anthropological perspective. I'll talk about some of those terms, particularly anthropology, in the lectures itself. But basically, what I want you to get from this is that we'll be looking at cultures in the sense of the very, very ancient past, like what archaeology can tell us about, 1,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago. Ethnohistory, meaning among other things, the very recent past, things that we know about from people's stories and from elders' knowledge that they've either shared themselves or shared to anthropologists who have written it down. And then contemporary experiences, things that are going on today. So knowledge of how things were a long time ago, knowledge of how things were, let's say, 50 or 100 or 150 years ago, and knowledge of how things are today. And I try to make clear in my lectures which I'm talking about, right? So for example, if I'm talking about a Nupiat culture and we're talking about whalebone structured homes, or traditional snow igloos, obviously these are practices that, yes, people can still do and may do occasionally for like specific reasons, for example, to kind of celebrate a past cultural practice, but they are primarily a past cultural practice, right? People nowadays are living in wooden homes with interior heating and everything. And so I try to clarify when I'm talking about like traditional times 200 years ago or something like that, and when I'm talking about things going on today. And also the course is kind of set up that way. In Unit 2, you have a lot of these are how things were traditionally, some of which is still practiced. And then in Unit 3, we have a lot of, okay, what are some sort of present day topics affecting Native communities? I keep pausing because I'm helping my kiddos out with things. All right, so a few other things. Again, there's no textbook. All of the readings are online. You can print most of them off pretty easily. If you ever have a problem locating the readings online, please let me know. And I'm actually somebody that prefers to do my reading in print, like not online. However, so I certainly understand if that's how you feel. Online readings aren't a perfect solution, but they help again with keeping college costs lower and making sure everybody has their readings the first day of class, especially in a class like this where it's an accelerated class and you really want to be starting on the work like day one. Late penalty is 5% a day, but I'm also very generous with extension. So like if there's a situation, just let me know. Obviously I get things in late at work if there's a home situation or even just like another work thing that was more pressing or something like that. So if you've got a situation, like just let me know, okay? This shows, and I can't always give an extension, but I often can. Your grade. Okay. Tests are 60% of your grade because there's 3 tests and they're each worth 20%. So the tests are worth 60% of your grade. The paper is worth 10%, or sorry, 20% of your grade. And then each assignment is worth 5%, which means all the assignments together are worth 20%. So as you can see from that, the research paper is worth about the same as all of the assignments combined. So definitely don't skip the research paper. And also with the assignments, although they are each small individually, together that adds up to 20% of your grade, right? So you can't just skip those either. This is more information. Oh, this is about class safety. Some of the stuff doesn't fully apply because we're not in quite the same way that it would if we were in an in-person class, but it does still apply in the sense that if we're doing a discussion board, which we do a couple of times in the semester, if we're doing a discussion board, please be respectful towards each other. Obviously, goes without saying. I'm not sure. I don't almost never, if ever, have an issue with that. I've found students up here to be very respectful towards each other. The other thing is just to be considerate in how you characterize cultures and peoples. So, there's terms that if you know that they're offensive, or at least that some people find them offensive, in a class like this, a common term, for example, is Eskimo that people might use in the first weeks. Some people in that community might not find that offensive, but some people do. So I'd ask you to avoid it unless you yourself are from that community, and that's the term you use. But that's just one example, right? You could also be offensive while talking about any other number of non-native cultures, just in general. When you're talking about a group of people other than your own, be thoughtful about it, okay? Don't be a jerk. We all know that. In this class, I do not allow people to use ChatGPT or the other sorts of generative language AIs that have come out over the past couple of years. Do not use those in writing your papers or your test questions. Because it's against the rules and it's academic dishonesty, and I reserve the right to give you a 0 or refer you to the university, but also just because it really detracts from your own learning, and it also usually does not do a good job of covering Alaska Native cultures. My experience with ChatGPT, even the more recent versions, has been that if you try to ask it a question about Native cultures, it often gives you generalized blah, like stuff that's just like so general and like really, really doesn't do justice or respect to the culture. So just don't do it. Just don't do AI in this course. I know AI has a number of really useful applications in other courses, but in a cultural anthropology course about Alaska Native cultures run by Adam Dunstan, it has no uses, so don't be using it. The last couple of pages is the course structure, the course schedule. And so basically a few things I want to point out. The course is run on a weekly schedule. So there's 5 weeks, each of them from Sunday to Saturday. So you'll have the content available by Sunday. Most of the content's already available. But if it's not already available, it'll be available by Sunday of that week. And then whatever you have due, whether that's an assignment or a test or both, there's always something each week. But whatever it is that's due, it's due by that Saturday at midnight. So for example, if we start on Sunday the 7th, everything that's due that week is due by the 13th, so on Saturday. This first week is 10 days long because we start in the middle of the week, so that first half a week gets lumped into the first week, so you get 10 days before you have your first test. It'll give you a list of your readings. Sometimes it'll have links to the readings and sometimes it won't. And if it doesn't, that just means you need to, again, go to Blackboard and go to modules, and that's from my point of view, the easier way to find the readings. And then it'll have a list of the topics. You'll notice that there's kind of 3 units to this class. The first unit is knowing our place. And so that is about, among other things, several kind of key topics about the history of Alaska to make the rest of the course make sense. And so it'll be kind of introducing the 20 major cultures of this area. It'll be talking about kind of an overview of one specific culture Dena'ina culture, because most of us that take this course live on Dena'ina land, if we're like located in Anchorage or Palmer, or Homer or Kenai. That's not true of everybody, but because it's true of 80% of us, I do that as a way of sort of like, all right, let's talk about if you were to time travel, right? If I was to stay in Kenai, but time travel 300 years ago, what might my life have looked like? So that's kind of module 2 to give you a sense of sort of traditional culture. Module 3 is about colonialism. Okay, so things that happened after and were done to Native communities after Russians got here, and then after the state was purchased by the United States. We also cover things like the Civil Rights Act for Alaska Native people. And then also talking about INCSA and basically an IRA, which is another IRA and other laws, basically the formation of modern tribal entities as descendants of the sovereign nations of these lands. Unit 2 is culture groups. So in that unit, I go over. So basically, if you here, let me find you a map, and I can show you this really easily. Okay, so this is what I was looking for. Okay, so if you look at this, this is a pretty good description of basically what we think of as like the 5 culture groups. And what we mean by that are there's, depending on how you count, basically 20 different languages or 20 different Alaska Native cultures. And then you could kind of roughly group those into 5 big like regions or 5 big culture groups. And so, for example, there are 10 or 11 Athabascan languages that are relatives of each other, and each culture is distinct, right? Dena'ina is distinct from Atna, is distinct from Koyukon, is distinct from Lower Tanana. But there's some broad similarities. There's some a lot of language commonalities. So all of that we would say Athabascan or Dene. Then Inupiaq and St. Lawrence Island Yupik, Yupik and Shupik, Unangan and Alutik, or what some of you might be more familiar with is like Aleut and Alutik, but Unangan and Shupik. And then the southeast groups, so Yak, Haida, Tsimshian, and Tlingit. So I don't have time to do like 20 weeks, and each week we cover a different distinct Alaska Native language or culture. So instead what we do is we cover it by culture region or culture group. So the 1 week we're covering Supiaq and Unangan, 1 week we're covering Yupik and Shupik, 1 week we're covering Inupiaq, 1 week we're covering all Athabascan, 1 week we're covering coastal southeast is the way that I would normally do this if we had a 15-week course. But essentially it's this like consolidated, compressed, what's the word? Sped up or accelerated version of the course. Instead, what we do is we'll cover like 2 to 3 of those culture regions a week. Okay, does that make sense? So each week we'll cover 2 to 3 culture regions, each as a separate module. Does that make sense? All right. I'm hoping you're nodding at home like, yes, Professor Dunstan, that makes sense. So that's the middle of the course, and the bulk of the course is talking about those different culture groups and learning a little bit about them. And for each of those culture groups, we will not be able to learn everything by any stretch of the imagination, but I've tried to pull out a few things from each culture group that are interesting, that are unique, and that might give you some insight into the unique peoples of that region. Unit 3, topics of today, we spend a couple of weeks talking about some big overarching topics that affect many groups. And today, so things like economic and environmental issues, or things like contemporary religious identities, things like language loss and language revitalization, things like that. And that's the basic structure of the course. And that is also the basic structure of Blackboard. So I hope you enjoyed it. I am really excited to have you in this course. I take this course very, very seriously. As again, I am biased, but I think one of the most important things you can learn about is the Native peoples of the land that you live on. And for some of us, those are your own communities. And so I hope that you, if that's the case for you, I hope you feel like I'm doing that topic justice. And for all of us, I hope you feel that I cover the topics in a respectful, factual, and interesting way. If you ever have suggestions of improvements I can make, I would love to hear them, and I'm getting forward to getting to know all of you through the introductions this first week.